Well, I'm headed on a road trip down South 95 all the way down to eventual destination Delray Beach, Florida. And I want to share many of the disc golf courses that I'm going to be playing, certain holes on each one that are interesting and that I find to be unique challenges. And right now I'm at Sergeant Jasper Park outside of Savannah, Georgia. And I'll start with number one here. Definitely challenging, and courses that have water, well, they're beautiful, but they can be very challenging. You don't want to get your discs wet. Of course, you can always go with something like this Wahoo here. This does float in the water, so that's a good thing. But sometimes the challenge might call for other discs that you have in your bag, especially ones that you're very used to throwing. And so I'll talk about disc usage and techniques to get you where you're going, especially as it relates to the forehand sidearm flick shot. All right, let's get started here at number one, Sergeant Jasper Park, which is called the Sarge. Number one here at the Sarge is actually pretty far, and it might look easy from the tee pad over here, but obviously you have this huge water hazard to the right. So since I do the forehand flick, all my discs are going to tend to fade this way. What should I do? Well, I should throw something either very straight or throw something understable that'll turn over well and possibly head off the other way. Let's see what we can do here. Nice drive here with my Wraith. I'll talk more about that in a second when I wrap up this one. But difficult because there's water behind it. And if you really run it, really go for it and throw it hard, well, you might end up in the water. So I'm going to throw this one, my 86 putter, which tends to sink right into the basket for me, and I don't have to throw it too hard or too far. Okay, wrapping up number one here at the Sarge, and I'm going to tell you what I threw and why I threw it. The Wraith here, this is a regular DX Wraith, cheap plastic, no problem with these. They definitely tend to get dented up, you can see on the side there, but that's why a lot of people throw the more expensive Champion Pro plastic, things like that. But I do like DX plastic. Why? Because it's great for beginners, because it's cheap, and if you're just starting out in disc golf, you might be young and you might not have a lot of money, so that's a good thing. It's okay to throw DX plastic, just know that it will eventually change habits and it could eventually wear out also and be totally unpredictable. But they last a good long time, years and years and years, if you don't hit too many trees, and that's it. So the Wraith tends to be a flippy disc. That means if I throw it right here with a forehand flick, it tends to turn over and flip up. That's called a hyzer flip. When you start off with a hyzer and it turns up, that's hyzer flip. And I use that in this instance because I wanted to avoid the water over there. And this Wraith helped me do that. I know it has a tendency to turn away from the water, so I felt confident, and it did do what it does very well. Turned up, went a little straight, and then turned back toward my target at the end, but very safe and definitely away from the water. If I would have thrown something overstable like I'd usually throw there, maybe my Crank SS, well, it could definitely have turned right on me and gotten itself wet, and I would not be happy if I lost my Crank SS. Check out my video review of that disc elsewhere on YouTube, because I do love that disc. But in this case, the Wraith did a great job setting me up for my putt, as I said, with the 86. And again, it's the 86, and this is a really old disc, but you can throw it high and it tends to sink, and that's why it has a nickname of 80 sink. So it's a good sinker disc that just gets up there, goes where you want it, then drops right in, and that's what I did here for the birdie. On to the next one. For this one, we're at Tom Triplett Park in Savannah, Georgia, and it's 250 feet, but it's a tight fairway. So let's see how we can handle it. Okay, I threw 4 discs here on number 1, and the reason being I wanted to give you 4 examples of discs. Let's start with the Mamba. Nice throw, ended up going right at the end, overstable, as well as the Destroyer. And pulling out here we see the Wraith, which is more understable and tends to be able to turn over more, and that's why you see it on the left side, remember, for the forehand flick. Now these are all opposite. If you throw right hand, backhand, they'll curve the other way, or fade the other way, or turn, both of those things. Fade is at the end of the flight, and turn is actually how it turns over. So there you go. Now a lot of people say to me, hey Ivan, why don't you throw approach for 250 feet, a mid-range or approach? And that's why I went ahead and did it. Now I don't have the range of many disc golf players, so that ultimately is why I use drivers for some of the shots that other people would throw mid-ranges. But again, this is a makeable putt, and this Cobra here, I love it. And I do have a full video on the Cobra. Check out that elsewhere on YouTube. But it's a great disc, and it worked well here, but again, the drivers got me closer. Okay, this one is also a triplet, and it's 195 feet from the blue tees. Why is that so short? Well, if you look over here, the red and white are actually a little bit longer, but the blue makes you actually curve left and go through trees here. So it's real tough to get at. You could actually go ahead and throw down here and curve right. So that's another way at it. Let's see if we can get to it. So here's another shining example of why I throw drivers instead of mid-ranges. Look, the drivers, my Beast and the Mamba, are much closer. Number 13 here at West Delray Park in Florida is pretty straight, but you've got some stuff in the way, definitely, and it's quite far actually. So it's kind of interesting. Let's see what I can do with it here. So the Starlight Boss ended up straight and right where I wanted it, really. I used its overstable nature to kind of curve around the tree and get me right in the center for what would be a pretty good approach, except for these trees here, so I got to go around them. It's kind of tough. Look. It's kind of interesting that I threw my mid-range Cobra just as far as this Starlight Boss. That goes to show you that a well-thrown mid-range can go just about as far as a driver for some players, and I'm one of them actually. So don't worry about what everybody else is throwing. Throw what makes you comfortable. Throw what you're comfortable throwing. Close. Okay, so wrapping up number 13 here, the Starlight Boss, which I threw with some Anheuser, because it tends to be overstable and curves back right. Remember, the opposite for right hand, backhand. Anheuser here. It should be thrown at the same angle for the backhand, like this. So if I'm saying Anheuser for forehand, then it's actually Heiser for backhand. But anyway, do it like this, curve around the tree, and then actually same with this one a little bit, although this one turned up because it's actually understable, and then turn a little bit and curve back for a very nice straight throw, just as far as the Starlight Boss. Okeeheelee Park, Palm Beach Disc Golf. This is number 8, 331 feet, and straight, but trees on the outsides. So, how do we stay down the fairway and make it happen? Well, let's do it. Nice drive with the halo air. Threw it with some anhyzer, and it's very overstable, so it got there, stayed nice and long, fought the tendency to curve right, and put me pretty close to the basket, probably just outside of the circle. I'd say 40 feet or so. That means you can jump putt outside of the circle. Okay, so there you go. Wrapping up number 8 here is a great tutorial on overstable discs. I threw the halo air bubbles, makes it go a little farther. I really love this disc. I threw it with a bit of anhyzer, and again, that would be opposite for a right-hand backhand player. In other words, you're still going to throw the disc like at that angle, but it's going to be reversed. Anhyzer for right-hand backhand players would be like this. You might want to incorporate some anhyzer if your discs are turning left for you. They always turn left. Well, increase the angle up until you get it right and to go straight. Power players, of course, can even throw these with hyzer, and they'll flip up, hyzer flip, and go quite a distance before trailing off back that way for right-hand backhand players. But again, not everybody throws that hard with the speed. That means you can bring down the number of the disc you throw. If you're throwing 11s, 12s, 13s, and they're not turning up, try to throw a 7, 8, 9, 10 disc. Something a little slower, mid-range, like the Cobra. Check out my video on the Cobra. That's a great all-around disc. You can play most courses with a mid-range. Anyway, back to these overstable discs. I throw them usually like this one actually can be overstable, or it's actually really depends on how you throw it. You could actually get it to turn over if you throw it with some hyzer, but throw it flat to a little bit of anhyzer and it should actually do a nice S-curve for you and get some distance. But in this case, I used the halo air for the driver, which worked out great, got me down there, and then this one as a putter. Now, why would I use an overstable disc as a putter? Well, when I throw them, I really know when they tend to break. So I can, as I did here, make long putts with these by throwing them and having them just curve left and land right into the basket. It's of course hit or miss, but I've done it with some success with my Destroyer and other discs like that one, overstable discs. The Crank SS, you can use that as well for that one. Check out my videos on those discs elsewhere here. But there you go. Overstable discs can be good for approaches, putts, whatever. Drivers even. Remember, don't listen to what your friends are throwing because they're different than you. Throw what makes you feel comfortable. Throw whatever feels comfortable for you. But never go to too fast of a disc before you have the power to make them go the distance. If you're not getting the disc to do what you want it to do and feeling you're getting the most out of it, drop speed levels just a little bit. All right, there you have it. On to the next one. 383 feet, but over the water and lots of hazards, and you don't want to get your discs wet. So what do? So for number 5 here at Okeeheelee in Palm Beach area, you should use one of these. The Wahoo floats in the water. Let's see if I can make it happen without getting it wet. Not wet. That's all I care about. Well, this is a really tough shot to shoot video-wise, so I'm just going to hand hold it and try to get my beast up to the basket there. Yeah, that should be close enough for a putt. Okay, so the beast got me there, got me out of trouble, and close enough for the easy putt in. The Wahoo is a disc that floats in water. It's overstable. Notice I threw it with a lot of anhyzer to Make sure it stayed the distance until it started its big fade right at the end. Made it over the trees. Unfortunately hit a tree and then ended up right by the water, but at least not in the water. So nice par here on very difficult number 8 here at Okeeheelee Park. Lots of birds around PGA National Disc Golf Course here. This one is number 4, 283 feet. Pretty straight, but you've got a lot of hazards in the way. Let's see how we can play it. So the Mamba here took a very nice line, and I threw it with pretty flat, maybe some anhyzer, but I certainly gave it some follow through to the left to get it to go ahead and turn over and kind of S around a bit, get around the trees, and it did it. Got me probably about 50, 55 feet, maybe 60 feet away from the basket. But at least it's clear and a makeable birdie putt. Okay, so wrapping up number 4 here. Started with the drive with the Mamba. You can either throw it flat or with a little anhyzer depending on how much power you have. And I did give it some follow through to clear it around those trees, and then let the disc's natural overstable tendencies bring it back to the right. And then, speaking of overstable, I went ahead and did another one of my putts where I go ahead and use my right hand backhand, and because it's overstable, these discs sometimes, even though they're drivers, I like the way they break left when I throw them like that, and in this case I was successful, got the birdie. I certainly wouldn't call my disc golf game conventional, but again, I like to use whatever discs work for me and throw them in ways that work for me. It doesn't say you should watch my form and try to do my form. Watch every video out there, learn from other players, learn from your friends, but in the end, do what works for you. Number 16 here is certainly a challenge for forehand flickers like me. 359 feet from the elevated tee pad here, but look, if you happen to have a tendency to curve your shot off this way, well, you're wet, and that's not a good thing. So you got to figure out how to make the disc fly and then turn left. So what will we do? Well, let's see. Okay, good results here with my Valkyrie and this roller that I threw with the Crank SS. Now these are 2 staple discs. I have videos on each of these discs, entire videos focusing on just these discs, so check those out. But the Valkyrie is just really good. You can throw it, aim it at your target basically, and it gets there, and that's what I did here, just kind of straight down the fairway. Didn't worry about it curving too much to the right. It's a cross between a distance and a fairway driver, I'd say. It's very predictable. You can get it to do whatever you like, depending on the amount of anhyzer, and your power. Just a great all-around disc. Definitely a must-have for your bag. Check out that video. Anyway, the Crank SS. I've done roller videos before, and I use this Crank SS with some success. And today it's pretty good, but the grass is kind of thick, so it could have gone a little better, but I can't complain because each of these is at least a putt. Not an easy putt, but a putt nonetheless. My 86 putter here tends to be pretty stable. You can throw it right at your target, and this one turns over nicely, so very nice, very close to the basket here for a nice easy putt in. The Cobra, one of my favorite all-around discs. You can play a whole course with this one. Check out my video on it exclusively. But I just threw the Cobra right at the basket and came up very close for the easy putt in. So wrapping up a tricky number 16 here, I threw 2 drives, the Crank SS with the roller, and the Valkyrie with a straight flick right towards the basket, and just let the Valkyrie do what it does, which is be a nice control fairway driver. Not really a distance driver, but you can get some good distance with it, and it's very easy to control. Check out my video on this one, as I said earlier. Crank SS, roller, throw it with Anheuser, follow through, flick hard, and get that roll speed. Unfortunately, the grass is kind of thick. Check out my entire video on how to throw a roller elsewhere on YouTube, but here we go. The nice approach, putter, Cobra, all around great disc, and also my 86 here, which is definitely a staple of my bag, and it's a great all-around putter and approach disc too. Arnette Park, number 8, 288 feet. A lot of trees and a kind of slow dogleg right. So definitely challenging, wooded, but I think we can handle it. Nice result with the Mamba, about 35-40 feet away, outside the circle, which means I can jump putt. But that's not the way I do it. Let's see if I can make a birdie here. Okay, so wrapping up number 8 at Arnette Park, and it started off with a nice drive with the Mamba. I threw it with a bit of Anheuser, and that means it's kind of pointed up in the air a bit, and that's to make sure that its natural tendency to fade right is kept at bay until it gets the distance I wanted. And that's what it did. Set me up for a tough putt through the trees basically, but I was able to get around those trees with the Halo Air, which is a driver and it's got air bubbles in it. But again, I like to throw drivers as putters sometimes, especially in a situation like that where I need to get around trees, because I know that I can throw it and it'll cut left, and that's exactly what it did. Cut left and landed into the basket for the birdie. Number 2 here at Arnette Park, straight down a very tight fairway, 360 feet. Tough. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so the Cobra, I certainly can't get it 360 feet. It's a mid-range approach, and I had a particularly bad low throw here. But I wanted to show you that you can play any course, any hole with a mid-range. So I think I can get close enough to putt with this approach shot. Let's see. Okay, nice drive with the Starlight Wraith. Got me around the trees and curved right back in really to the fairway. So that's a pretty nice place to be when you're on the fairway. And there's the basket off in the distance. Certainly a good ways away, but I think we can at least get very close. Okay, so wrapping up number 2 here at Arnette Park, 360 feet long and straight down the fairway there, and the Wraith, Starlight Wraith, got me there and kind of went around the trees, put me back in the fairway, and was able to get a really nice approach shot with the Beast here, throwing with a lot of hyzer to curve around these trees, and there you go. Ended up just a couple of feet from the basket for the easy putt in. Okay, again, not the greatest throw with the Cobra, but close enough for a 25-30 foot putt. Let's see if I can get it in there to save par. Okay, so wrapping up number 2 here at Arnette Park, and the Cobra. I was able to throw it down the fairway, not very far, too low, and not a great throw, but my approach shot was a bit better, got me within about 20-25 feet of the basket, and I was able to save par with that. So there you see, you can really play a whole course with the Cobra, putter, driver, approach, and all. But the Wraith had a much better throw, and that is a Starlight Wraith, and that was able to get me around the trees, curl back with some hyzer, and go ahead and land in the fairway. And then I threw the Beast with some hyzer to get me around the trees, and pretty much a drop in for the par there. So same result with the driver and the Beast, but very different paths. You can play the whole course with the Cobra. Check out my full review of the Cobra elsewhere on YouTube. Thanks for watching this disc golf travel video. Don't forget to check out all of my other videos for disc golf on YouTube. Also check out my music videos, my literal video, documentaries, short film. Even have some cooking and food review videos and guitar review videos. Of course, lots of music as well. And of course, my Drivin Ivan car reviews. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and subscribe to me here on YouTube. I'm Ivan Katz.